Hi, Leo, Sun and Rising. Welcome to your October 2022 Astro update. It's Raina here. I'm kind of laughing to keep from crying because I just did like 26 minutes. I was on a roll and it was wrong. I spent a long time talking about something that was absolutely wrong about where your Pluto was. So now I have to start all over again. But that's life in the big city when you are doing videos. Anybody who does videos, whether you're doing audio videos or video videos, you know that this happens. And this is still Mercury retrograde, so I'm going to blame it on that rather than myself. Um, why not find somebody else to blame if you can do so? No, I'm just joking. Okay, well, the month begins with Mercury going direct, and this is in Virgo. Mercury started its retrograde in Libra, which is your third house, and is the house that Mercury rules in the sign of Gemini in the universal chart. So we have your personal chart, and then there's the universal chart. Leo in the universal chart rules the fifth house of love, creativity, children. And yet in your chart, Leo's the first house. So, and this is for sun and rising both. Okay. So, so Mercury's going direct in the second house of earned income. And this is good because maybe you had a little bit of a slowdown in terms of money flowing to you or that you've been earning. Since it started in the third house, if you work in education, like grammar school type of early childhood or elementary school, that might have been some kind of, well, you could even say high school. I think that's third house too. But anyway, you might have had a salary Lord have mercy, renegotiation or something along those lines. So, whatever is going on has been kind of like settled on, or at least initially, the initial decision might have been made. Also, it's important to note that the third house can be siblings. It can be aunts, uncles, cousins too. So if you had any kind of misunderstanding, Mercury went into the second house, and you may have really thought about it in terms of your self-worth, because Mercury, the second house can represent self-worth. So I think that this is not implausible, because sometimes the people that are closest to us, namely family members, we give them a pass, or they're so familiar to us that we don't even realize when it is a toxic relationship. And then we really think about how this is impacting our self-esteem. And we vow that we are not going to allow this kind of treatment. So if that has happened for you, I applaud you, because it's very important to sort out these kinds of things. On the 8th, we have another planet going direct, and this is an outer planet. Mercury's an inner planet, it's personal to us. Pluto is a generational planet, and so normally we don't talk about, oh, my Pluto is in Sagittarius. Well, you could do so. I've done videos on these generational planets, how they affect a generation, but we don't talk too much about that. But when it's transing a house, or if it's inhabiting your natal chart, yeah, definitely it will affect you personally. And in your case, this is where I got screwed up. I said the 8th house and went on a long-winded, channeling session, or whatever you want to call it, on that. But really, it's your 6th house, okay? So Pluto transiting in the 6th house can be a very interesting transit, okay? I wouldn't say, oh, it's very... Pluto itself is kind of a challenging influence. It's a Vedic astrology calls it a malefic planet. So you can get a feel for it. I wouldn't go that far. I would say that it challenges you quite a bit because it's trying to transform you at a deep level. And people don't necessarily want to be transformed. I've come to realize that. I want to be transformed, but I have the sun in the eighth house, and that is Pluto's domain. So that is something that appeals to me. Other people may be like, I want to stay the same. I want this familiarity. But familiarity can breed contempt, can't it? So in the sixth house, this can be your health. This can be your workplace. It can be service to others. But I would say specifically if you are doing healing types of work, that can run the gamut. I mean, it can be anything from working in a hospital to doing Reiki, but it can also be being a personal trainer and transforming people's physical, their health, or being some kind of a health, I don't know what they call those people, but it's kind of like alternative health where they're, helping people do fasts and things like that, because Pluto can be purifying and all of that. Now, I'm going to talk about something. I don't like to say the word trigger alert or phrase, because that's kind of, to me, kind of lame. The world is not here to conform to our fears or anything. But if Pluto in the sixth house can, for some people, be a time where they have an eating disorder. And if you have your natal Pluto in the sixth house, that can also tend to cause something like that. But we have to understand something. Eating disorders are not just anorexia and bulimia. Eating disorders can be orthorexia, an obsession with pure, clean eating. Of course, we want to eat as clean as possible, the least pesticides and all of that. But some people feel like they're going to get sick if they eat something that is conventional produce and not organic, or if they don't have, they don't filter their water through a Berkey, they're going to get poisoned. And these kinds of things, to me, they may be well-meaning, but they can be a form of OCD. Now, I am not a therapist, and I'm just a human being that gets to say things. You can totally disagree with me. I want only grown-ass people listening to this, and therefore people are responsible for the choices they make. I'm not claiming to be anything of a health expert or a mental health expert. But anyway, so being able to pinpoint that, and maybe some people have realized that they took a diet too far, and that it's gaining control of them in ways they don't want. Because Pluto can be about power, and power is control. And when people, this is the theory about anorexia, is that when people feel out of control in their life, in different areas, the one thing they can control is their body. And yes, I do think that there's some truth to that, especially for teenagers, because they are not free agents yet. But I also think that there are other things, sexual abuse, or other things that are going on that can motivate a person to try to control things with diet. And actually, one of the things that they say about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is that it allows a person to have an obsession so that they're not thinking about the trauma. And I think and so it actually serves a positive purpose. But the problem is that it creates other problems. That's the problem. So, so you may be dealing with something along these lines. And it might be excessive exercise. That can possibly be it. True. The thing about Pluto is it wants to transform, but we have to see, um, that our transformation is a positive one, that it's not transforming us into something that's actually weakening us. This can be very good, though, for somebody who is endeavoring to transform their health. Maybe you read some books like The Medical Medium and you're doing that protocol, who knows? Or just you're working with a healer to try to get yourself very strong. In the workplace, this can have been something with power plays, and that's another interesting area, but it can cause problems in the workplace. Either you may have somebody who is the supervisor boss who is like really creating an unpleasant work environment, and you've had to kind of see how you contribute to that again, looking within, or you want success so much that you are unknowingly being overbearing. But there might be coworkers who are also doing things behind the scenes. There might be some secretive behaviors, and so there are power plays because of that. Leo is the natural leader, so you may naturally cause other people to react in a rather uncomfortable way because they fear you usurping them, especially if you were hired after them. They may feel like, how come this person has so much respect from the boss? And it's like, well, they have a take charge personality, and that's just something that apparently the boss is very enamored by. So it is what it is, right? So you're kind of like now that it's direct, it's more out in the open where you can exert yourself, not with imposing your will on others, but just kind of being very standing in your own power. The next day on the 9th, full moon at 16 degrees of Aries. This is your 9th house. Coming to a realization of the purpose of your life, the meaning of your life. On a more mundane level, you may be ending a trip, or you may be finally manifesting that trip that you've wanted for a long time. That might even be more of the possibility there, because it's, coming on the heels of that Mercury retrograde, where everybody may have had their plans, where a lot of people could have had their plans changed, their travel plans. On the 10th, Mercury goes into Libra, actually going back into Libra. And this emphasis on education, maybe getting skills, can come up. This is even from September, but we were in that retrograde at that time, so maybe you couldn't take that course that you wanted to take. On the 23rd, a lot of stuff happening. Venus and the Sun go into Scorpio. This is an angular house, the 4th house, home and family. I say the mother, some people say the father, but we could say the family of origin, your childhood. But even just real estate, Venus can bring money. So proceeds on a home. The mother may be giving you money, or the father, if you think 4th house is the father. Saturn goes direct on the same day again in another fixed sign. This is another angular house, in this case, the 7th house of committed partnerships. So Saturn, like Pluto's what we call malefic planet, or what Vedic astrology calls a malefic planet, just very challenging, but I think it can be a great thing. Can forge the best out of you. If your relationship is hanging by a thread, maybe this is the time, and I'm not saying this month, but when Saturn is transiting through this house, where you decide to call it quits. Pluto is going to be entering this sector come March, and Saturn will be leaving it. Isn't that funny? So Saturn leaves, and then Pluto settles in for 15 years in in your house of marriage. So enjoy, because since Pluto can be the shadow, that can bring up the shadow of the other person, but it's also affecting you, and it could resemble things that you've been through as well. Now, but I'm talking about Pluto there. With Saturn, it's more about, is this working? If not, this is excess. This is draining you. This isn't benefiting you, and we have to do something about this. And Leo is a fixed sign, so you're not really keen on change. Um, I think I might have said that earlier, but because I've done this twice, it's like, what did I say? What didn't I say for each of these videos? But yeah, so it disciplines you when it comes to these close relationships so that you can see whether they are constructive. I think that's a good way of putting it. Does this have constructive value in your life? If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so you may have been looking within, how do I contribute to this? And that's a good thing. So, expect more challenges or helping you to have boundaries in relationships. That could be it as well. And be more disciplined so that you're not expecting that other people are just going to fall in line. You have to sometimes declare boundaries so that people know exactly where you stand. On the 25th, we have a solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio in that fourth house, and the South Node is here. So how has your childhood affected you, Leo, or exploration? And this, again, could be connected to Pluto in the 8th house. How have you used that maybe as a crutch to avoid taking responsibility for things? If you have a moon in Pisces or Cancer in particular, if you have inner planets in Cancer, you may be more of a, inner planets, by the way, could be Mercury, it could be Venus, it could be Mars, and the moon is considered that as well. If you have any of these placements, you may use, and this may not be on the conscious level, a certain sensitivity or hypersensitivity about your past to kind of shut people down about certain things, or even your own self, where you don't want to think about certain things. Some people are very secretive about their childhood because they had a really bad one. And that's understandable, but it just shows that there is a lot to be healed if a person operates that way. So being able to be honest with yourself about what it is that you are in need of doing can be very helpful to put yourself back on track so you're not looking at your life through a rear view mirror, and you're not trapped in the past, in other words. But these transits of the South Node in the 4th house and Pluto in transing your 8th house can be very helpful in actually healing from that, because you can see exactly what you're working with. This can involve the mother. Again, some people say 4th is the father. And this solar eclipse at 2 degrees, a very early degree of Scorpio, can spell out very new beginnings in this area of the past. Now, on a more mundane level, this could be like about real estate, acquiring a new house. Sorry if you can hear machinery in the background. I just want to finish this, and I have the windows open. On the 28th, Jupiter goes back into Pisces. Wow, some more water energy. I mean, a lot of water energy, And of course, this is Scorpio season, so that's not anything unusual. So Jupiter is still retrograding. It started out in that ninth house for you, going back into the eighth, where, oh, wait a second now. I gotta make sure because of all those mistakes that I made. Yeah, so going back into the eighth. Oh, yeah, I was referencing, I have to say something. I was referencing Pluto, again, mistakenly talking about the eighth house. But I will say that you could experience healing with some of this psychological underbelly stuff that the fourth house South Node may bring up for you in this last year or whatever it's been, based on Neptune being in the eighth house, because Neptune really gives you the spiritual tools to deal with these matters. And I will say too that if you have dealt with a death of, let's say, a parent, somebody very near and dear to you, and that has affected you psychologically, or any kind of transformation that the eighth house represents, this is super helpful for you, and this softens some of those that transformation, because there's that Pisces energy with Neptune, being the ruler of Pisces. It's very gentle. And so now you have Jupiter, which is the ancient ruler of Pisces, in that eighth as well. And I just feel that it gives a lot of, it kind of lightens, the eighth house can be kind of heavy, you know what I mean? And this makes it much more kind of like a positive thinking when it comes to your own transformation of like, yes, you've got this, you can do this. And so you have Jupiter going back there. Can also be that things are very lucky for you when you embark upon metaphysical studies. So don't be afraid to do so. Okay, let's see. On the 29th, and also, oh, one more thing is that the eighth house can be other people's money. So maybe there was some kind of a situation where you were going to get a loan for college, student loan, and that fell through or whatever, and something is coming back to give you that, or an inheritance or something. But I think especially since it retrograded from the ninth house, it could have some connection to university or any kind of like spiritual studies at a higher level. On the 29th, Mercury goes into that fourth house of home and family. Maybe there's contracts to sign for housing, talking to mother, talking to father, thinking about childhood issues. On the 30th, Mars goes retrograde. 25 degrees of Gemini. So now we're talking about from the other direction, Leo. This is the 11th house, hopes and wishes. Mars here. This is an area that it's going to be here for months to come. It's not going direct until January 12th. So you're talking about quite a long period of time. So something that you're working on I wouldn't say abandon, but you may kind of put that aside for other things that you're doing. Something that is a goal that is long range. And there might be, if you've had conflict with a group or friends, that might be kind of put aside as well. Maybe you're calling a truce, but that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to go back to that group or that those friendships, because you are changing, you're evolving. Neptune in the eighth is one example of that. And you really have this need for doing other things. And, you got the North Node in the 10th house in Taurus. And so that means that you might be really riding high career-wise. So perhaps other people have an issue with this because they're envious. Who knows? And we can, even if we pinpoint that somebody is like that, there's even a deeper level than that. It's like, okay, that person is envious, but they're supposed to be my friend. But what does that say also about their life? It says that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing or what they really want to be doing. And so instead of using me as some kind of inspiration, they're just getting pissed off at me, or they're trying to pick a fight. And I don't want to fall for that anymore. I want to be released from that kind of issue. So yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, I'm promoting my double readings because they're significantly discounted. I think around $25 for the two readings, or two full-length readings. It's like a package deal kind of thing. I'm trying to describe it. An hour of natal chart interpretation with an hour of transits. And I think that I used to do kind of a scaled down version of this, and it just wasn't comprehensive enough. And I have been doing this exclusively. I do those readings, standalone readings, like if somebody just gets a chart interpretation or the transits reading, but this is to kind of give a significant discount. And the reason that I do that is because I don't like to do things half-assed. I don't like things that are like, kind of just skimming the surface. That's because I have the sun in the 8th house. So if you haven't gotten a natal chart interpretation before, I'd love to do it for you. I'm always honored when somebody tells me that it's the first time that they've had it done, because, sometimes people have multiple chart interpretations, and I think that's cool too, because you can compare them. You will not get the same reading twice. I'll guarantee you that. So anyway, the link, that's called my deep dive reading. Not surprisingly, I have a reading that combines the chart interpretation with the tarot for people who just want that as well. That's a package deal called The Whole Enchilada, and I have standalone readings. I'm at RainaMoonAstrology.com. The link is below. Take care. Bye.